Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have Kimberly Davis Peters on my channel today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing good today. How are you?
Fine. Okay. Tell us about yourself.
Well, so I am a new author. I've always been writing in some way, shape, or form. A lot of what I do in my 40-hour-a-week, 9-to-5 job is writing. And I decided last year, 2019, that I wanted to try to write a children's book. And it was an amazing experience. So yeah, I'm a mother. I have a 4-year-old daughter. She just turned 4, and the book is inspired by her. I'm married, so I have a husband, and yeah.
Okay, tell us about your books.
Well, the first one is Ellie and the Rainy Day. So this was my published work in 2019, and it is a 24-page book. Inspired by my little girl. So Ellie is fashioned after her. And really what kind of led me in this direction was we had a book fair at her daycare. And I was really excited. I've always loved to read, always loved to write. And I was very excited to share that experience with her. And we went in with, in my view, going to buy some books with some African American representation.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a Scholastic book fair, very popularly known. Anyone who's been to a Scholastic book fair knows that there are tons and tons of books, over 100 at least. So we go into her daycare, and there's this long hallway, and there are these cases of books, case after case. And so I look at the cases and I'm like, great, this will be, a really great place to get some books with some diverse representation. And out of the hundreds of books, there were literally 3 with African American characters. There were more about puppies and, everything else, it seemed like, except African American representation. So of course we got those 3 books. And after that, I was having conversations with people in my network, my friends, my family, my coworkers, just talking about, expressing how disappointed I was that there was such a lack of diversity in that space. And there were, quite a few people who said, but aren't you a writer? And I say, yes, but, I don't write children's books. And so, a lot of people encourage me to go down the path of trying to write a children's book, being able to capture memories from my little girl. And one day I decided to do it. I sat down, I wrote the story. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted the story to be engaging. I wanted to really encourage the mother and daughter bonding that you see in the story. And so what I came up with was a story about a little girl who, Ellie, she wants to play outside on a rainy day, but it's raining and she can't. And she kind of starts to give up and thinks that the day is over. And mom steps in and comes up with some really creative ways for them to spend time together and find some alternate activities for Ellie to do. And at the end of the story, Ellie finds out that she has a really good day, even though it didn't start off the way she wanted it to. So,
yeah. Okay. And your second book?
My second book, oh my goodness. So my second book is called Cocoa, Tea, and Honey. And I'm so proud of it. I didn't know at the time when I wrote the first book that I was going to be writing a second. And I really have fallen in love with writing children's books. And so this particular book, it talks about representing different shades of brown, loving the different shades of brown that we come in, appreciating our own skin tones, and then the skin tone of others. So I don't think it's any secret in the African American community that we have an issue with colorism, right? You're too dark, you're too light, and we see that outside of our community, but it's very prevalent within our community as well, sometimes even within families, which is really
Yeah.
sad. And so, I wrote this book with that in mind. I want us to love our own skin that we're in, but I also want us to appreciate other skin tones as well, whether you're light or, dark on the darker end. Within my family, there are so many different and beautiful, amazing skin tones. I wanted to celebrate that, and I want that to be something that we start to teach our children at a very early age.
Okay. Would you like to read from one of them, and you want to do your surprise at the end?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So I will. Would you like me to read the whole book or just a couple of pages?
A couple of pages.
Okay.
You prefer?
Okay. So I'm gonna read toward the end, and this is after Ellie and her mother have had an amazing day during the rainy day. So when the rain stopped, Mommy took Ellie by the hand and they went outside. "There's one more thing I want to show you," Mommy said, pointing to the sky and telling Ellie to look up high. Ellie looked up and saw so many beautiful colors. She asked Mommy what it was. "That is a rainbow," said Mommy. "Oh, wow," Ellie said with a wide smile. At nighttime, they put on their pajamas and got ready for bed. Mommy tucked Ellie snugly into her bed, and with a sleepy yawn, Ellie began to close her eyes. "So, how did you enjoy your rainy day?" Mommy asked. Ellie gave a tired smile and mumbled, "I guess rainy days can be fun after all." She began to snore softly, and soon Ellie was fast asleep.
Yes, yes.
So this is available on my website currently, and my website is elliesbookshop.com. I encourage you all to please check it out.
Okay. Okay, how did you get started writing for kids?
Well, it goes back to the book fair, just understanding, being very disappointed that in today's, you know, in today's day and age that we don't have more representation, especially African American representation in children's stories. When I was growing up, I've always been a reader. I've always had a love of reading. And I can't think of very much, if any, African American representation in the stories that I loved as a child. It didn't impact me, I don't think, but I also do believe that it would have been very nice and very encouraging had that representation been available when I was a little girl. So that being said, what I found now, looking back, now having written my second book, what I found is that I can't necessarily say there's not any representation. There is representation, but it's not mainstream. So when I started down this road of writing books, I was very confused. I didn't know very much, and I just put one step in front of the other, putting this book out. And I came across some amazing groups of support and colleagues on Facebook, other authors and creators and illustrators. And there are many, many African American authors and books that have the African American representation. And I'm very proud to be amongst those elite creators.
Okay. Where do you get your story ideas from?
That is a good question. So I have to say that in a perfect world, I would, have time scheduled, and, I would sit down during that time with a cup of tea, looking out into my garden, and, and then I would just kind of daydream and these ideas would come to me. And that's definitely somewhere that I want to be in the future. But today, that's just not my life. I'm a full-time, I have a full-time job that I work 40 hours a week. I am a wife, I'm a mother, and, my day is jam-packed. It's very rare that I have a moment to myself, even to sit down. So a lot of the writing that I do is at night. It's after the baby goes to bed, after my husband goes to bed, and it's that quiet time for myself. And that's when I can kind of digest the day and brainstorm and things like that. But as far as inspiration for my stories, I will say Ellie and the Rainy Day was very intentional because it was I wanted something that wasn't very complex, and it really represented that mother-daughter bonding. So I'm always trying to start out with an idea of what it is that what message do I want to share? What message do I want parents and children to walk away with? Um, the second book, Cocoa Tea and Honey, was really interesting. And I'm not kidding. This is a true story. I came up with this idea because I was asleep one night, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up. Very full alert. I woke up, and I woke up with the phrase "cocoa tea and honey." And at the time, I had been thinking about my second book, and I had no ideas. I did not know what I wanted that book to be about. So I wake up randomly one night, and I verbally say it out loud, "cocoa tea and honey," and have no idea what to do with it. I said, "Okay, God, appreciate that." And I sat on it for a little bit, and it just kind of, cocoa tea and honey, the phrase kept kind of running through my mind as I thought about the second book. And I said, well, it's catchy. I think that's really cute, but how do I create a story around it? And then the more I started thinking about what cocoa tea and honey meant, I thought about, well, it does kind of represent different shades of brown, right? And then that's when I started going down the path of, okay, talking about colorism, and now how do I create a story that can be digestible for children in that realm? And, months later, we have Cocoa Tea and Honey. So literally, I do believe this is something that, God really spoke to me and wanted me to put out into the world. And I was, just the fortunate vessel that was used to do that.
Okay. What is your favorite thing about writing for children?
That's a good question. My absolute favorite thing is twofold. Number one, it's the reactions that I get from the children.
Mm-hmm.
And the other half of that is the reactions that I get from the parents. With Ellie and the Rainy Day, a lot of parents really enjoyed the story and really took away the meaning of overcoming obstacles, finding alternative solutions, and being able to use that as a tool to teach their own children. So anytime that, I can share a story and it creates or sparks a conversation between a parent and a child, to me, that is the most humbling thing in the world.
Okay. Can you describe your writing space?
Physical space?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I do have an office. However, we had some flooding recently. So I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and we had some flooding here over the past few months in the basement. That's where my office is. Needless to say, we've been ripping out drywall, and well, not me, but people, but we've had drywall, replaced and things like that. So I have a space, but now I have the opportunity to redo that space, and I'm getting new paint and, new decor, new design, and all of that, which is really exciting. In the meantime, my office space is upstairs in the living room right here. I have a desk. It's facing the beautiful thing about it is I really can just look out the window, and my garden, my front yard is there and garden, and I get to see people driving by and things like that. So it is really a comfortable space, I will say. And then my husband, he's working from home as well. So he took the dining room table, and so we have two desks, essentially two computers and all of that. So it's a chaotic space because, like, right here I have a big princess tent. And then this side is like all Minnie Mouse and hula hoops and toy chests, and and then we've got a couch and a TV, and so it's a cramped, complicated, but comfortable space.
Mhm.
And so when I'm writing, I usually don't do it here at the desk. I When I'm coming up, concepting, if you will, I'm either sitting on the couch, or sometimes I'll be out in the world, not as much, but sometimes I will be playing with my daughter, or doing something for her, having a conversation with her, or something child related, maybe a friend of mine. And I really get a lot of great ideas and concepts from the world around me.
Mhm. How long does it usually take you to write one book?
I like to consider myself a fast writer, although I don't think that's the goal, but a lot of people have told me that. When I wrote Cocoa Tea and Honey, I wrote it in 45 minutes. And I think that's, for me, I was even pretty impressed by that. Again, I woke up in the middle of the night and I just started, writing. And then after I got the title, there were other nights that I would wake up and, have a line here, a line there. And, one night I just sat down over the course of like 2 nights, I think, and wrote it in literally 45 minutes. Ellie and the Rainy Day, I would say maybe a week or two. I really try to keep my time frame for completion, or for the first draft,
Mhm.
to about a week. But that being said, I do have a third book that I'm working on that I'm a little stumped on, and so I keep coming back to that one. I'm not quite set on it yet. I've gotten to the end and it just didn't feel complete. So I've been going back to that one over and over. So I think, between the different stories, it just kind of depends on the flow and what's happening at that time and what the message is. And, some were very quick and some were, are taking a lot longer.
What books have had the biggest influence on your life?
In general,
Mhm.
that is a really good question. There is a recent book that I read by, I don't know if you or your audience are familiar with Brene Brown, but I consider her much like a life coach. I do read a lot of self-help. It's just something I'm interested in. And so Brene Brown, there is a book she has. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along the lines of The Power of Vulnerability. And it talks about shame and guilt. And that's something that I read recently, probably about a month or so ago.
Mhm.
And I will say, of all the books that I've read, that is going to be one that will continue to impact my life. The idea of shame and guilt, I went into it thinking I was reading another Brene Brown book, and I was happy to do that. And I did not expect the book or the content to really impact me in the way it did, to the point that once I was done with the book, I went back and read it a second time. And so it talks about shame, it talks about guilt. And I think, for especially women of color, I think we hold on to a lot, we internalize so much.
Mhm.
We're so busy taking care of everyone else that sometimes we forget about ourselves. And there are things that we go through that we just deal with. And so, to that aspect, I would recommend it. I think the topic of shame and guilt is something that, just as a community, we've had to deal with for many, many years. And it's okay to uncover some of that shame and some of that guilt, and speak it, right? Because it kills it. It impacts the shame and guilt, and taking that away once you speak it into existence. So what I'm trying to be better at nowadays is, if I'm stressed out or I'm anxious or I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, or I'm self-diagnosed imposter syndrome. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but I try to call or talk to someone in my circle and say, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling that I can't write this book. I'm not good enough. You know, who am I to think that I can change the world with one individual book? And I do that with my mom and, you know, people I trust and my husband and things like that. And, you know, we talk through it and then I walk away feeling better and getting rid of some of that shame and being able to continue to put one foot in front of the other. So that was a big one for me.
Okay. What are you reading now?
Right now, I'm not reading very much because I'm so either in tune with creating the next story that I have on my plate, or I have been supporting other Black authors by buying their books as well. So children's books, you know, I've been buying quite a few of those, and then, you know, some books for adults as well. I will say there are a couple children's books I just want to share with the audience that are really great from other authors that my daughter and I are reading right now. There's one called Bedtime Bonnet, and it talks about, you know, having our bonnets on our head at night. You know, we need that to protect our hair. And my daughter loved that, and now she will not go to bed without her bedtime bonnet. And she'll say, you know, I need it. It protects my hair. And, you know, that's been really adorable to watch for her. There's another book. It's called Black Girl Magic Sprinkles that my daughter just adores as well. And there's one more called Mommy's Little Black Princess. And so my daughter has just fell in love with that one. And, you know, she always asks, am I your little Black princess? And, you know, yes, you are. So it's really important, I think, to support other authors as well. So as much as I can, I try to do that. There are books that I want to get to just for adult reading. The book that Gabrielle Union has, I think it's, you know, We're Gonna Need More Wine or something. I do want to get into that. You know, just people that I admire. Another book I will say that was, and I can't believe this one didn't come to mind, a book that has forever changed me. So Michelle Obama's Becoming is amazing.
I got it back there.
I don't have words. It's an amazing book. Someone got the yes. So someone did. There's an accompany
Journal.
Yes, there's a journal, and someone did get that for me for Christmas, and I haven't been able to get to it yet, but I do plan to.
Oh, yeah. I just recently found out about the journal too.
Oh yes, yeah. I was shocked, and I plan to use it very much so. But that book was, I mean, what can you say about Michelle? She's an amazing woman, and I loved the way that she shared her story and made it so personable, and really it felt like she was letting us into her life. And I really appreciated that. I love her to death. Don't know her, but she's my auntie. She just doesn't know it. So
she is narrating the audio.
So it's funny. I don't have a lot of time, right? And so I started out by having the hardback. I bought the hardback, and then I was reading it in bits and pieces, and it wasn't quite the way I had planned to like digest it. So someone mentioned the audiobook, and I think a week, maybe if that, driving to and from work before Corona, that I used that time to dive into the audiobook, and it was amazing.
It is.
Yes.
It is. But what I was going to ask you about, when you went to your daughter's book fair, the Scholastic Book Fair, you said you only seen 3 books of color. Was one of those books Olivia Told the Secret? Was that one of them?
It was not.
It was the only one at my son's school.
Really?
I know the author personally.
Wow.
She did a big thing about it, but it's like you said, it's just 3, maybe 5 at the most books, but that's the only one for girls, and you can see a colored girl on the front. But the books, like you say, are puppies.
There were probably 20 books about puppies.
Yeah.
Right. And we haven't even, in those three or the one in your case, those were girls.
Yes.
And we haven't even talked about African American boys. And there were none, right? They're out there, but they're not in the mainstream. And it's so sad. But with that being said, the opportunity that we do have as creators is to be in control of our story. Because what I would hate is for one of the main publishers, to decide that this is something that they want to go after as far as a market. And then they're controlling that narrative, right? And they're controlling the illustration. So even though the representation isn't there, I think what's great is that we have an opportunity to tell our own story in our own way, even though it's a little harder.
Mm-hmm. How do you handle the balance of being creative and a business ends of things? Like you're an author, you're a mommy, you have a full-time job. How do you balance that?
One day at a time. It's tough because I am a one-man band, right? I'm writing the books. I'm working with the illustrator. I'm involved in every part of the process from start to finish. I have to do social media. I have to manage a website. I have to manage my inventory and keep track of my costs and things like that. And then I also have to be a mother and a wife and have food on the table at a certain time and make sure clothes are washed. And it can be overwhelming. I do my best to keep a planner, and that has been super helpful for me because I do like structure. That's just who I am. And so writing it out in a typical day and say, okay, today I'm going to make a grocery list. I'm going to wash one load of clothes. And then it feels like as I accomplish each of those things, and even maybe it's one thing for, the book, maybe it's, I do one social media post. And maybe I have been challenging myself to write one line or revise one line of the new book. And so having those tasks and being able to check them off makes me feel accomplished. And it makes me feel like I don't have to do everything in one day, but the little things I do can help move me forward.
Okay, next question about accomplishments. What has been the greatest accomplishment thus far as a writer?
The greatest accomplishment for me has been the amount of knowledge that I have. So I have my second book, and I feel like from the first book compared to the second, leaps and bounds, the amount of knowledge that I know about the industry and publishing has just grown tremendously. I feel a lot more comfortable in who I am as an author and the content that I want to put out. And honestly, one of the most accomplishing things is, every author knows you have this pipeline, right? So after you write a story, it has to go to the editor, and then it has to be, the layout has to be done and all of that. And when I wrote Ellie and the Rainy Day, it was overwhelming because I didn't have those connections. And you're, deciding to work with people, you don't know how that work is going to turn out. And so it can be nerve-wracking. And so the second time around, I feel more confident. I have a really great editor. We have a great relationship. I know I just found a really good layout person for the second book as well. And so building my team around me and having a strong team and people that are invested in my vision as well has been one of the biggest, accomplishments as far as being able to keep going and writing more books.
Okay. Now, what are you currently working on right now? I know you talked a little bit about it, but what are you currently working on?
I have a book, so a couple of things. I have one book that will be the next project. It's also going to be in the Ellie series, so Ellie, another Ellie book, and that one is already drafted and been given the okay by the editor. So as soon as my illustrator gets back, she's out of the office for this month. As soon as she gets back, we're going to get that ball rolling. And get that book out. And then the book I mentioned that I'm kind of stuck on a little bit, I need to go back to that one, and I need to either think about is the message right, or is my approach right, perspective? How can I, how can I finish that book, because it's been a lot longer than I usually take.
Okay. How can readers find you and your books?
Yeah, so you can find me at elliesbookshop.com. Ellie and the Rainy Day is available now. Also, Cocoa Tea and Honey is available for pre-order as well. You can also follow me on Instagram at author_KDP. And if you'd like to send an email, you can do that at hello@elliesbookshop.com.
Okay, and are you ready for your trailer?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Go ahead.
All right.
All right, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
No, I just want to thank you for having me and on your platform. And thank you, hello to all the new readers out there. I hope you guys, whether you have a child or a grandchild or a niece or a nephew, please support Black authors. Please feel free to sign up for my mailing list, and just really know that Black authors, we are here. I do feel, I feel it deep down, in my soul, that we are currently in a creative renaissance, very close to what we had in the 1920s. And so there are so many creatives working hard. Please follow me in my journey, and also support others as well.
All right, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me, and I hope to be back soon.
All right, this is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye.